Welcome in is the Beast of the East podcast here on Willis Digital Media and the Believe Podcast Network, jamming to our new intro music. This is the first time I've heard this, Steve. It's been it's the real deal, man. We're getting there. That we're hosting the Jackson State Marching Band, and Coach Prime will be by later. Actually, he won't be, but joining me as always is Craig Ladd. What's up, Craig?
Good morning, Corey. Good morning. How about good evening? It's been a long day, but I'm glad to be doing this this evening. I like the intro music. I didn't know that was the first time. That's big time.
Yeah, big time. Steve is good at picking out music. I'll give him that. And Steve is behind the scene here as we go. But we are the Beast of the East podcast. We are presented by betonline.ag. The chat is in full effect, as you can see. We've got some questions there. We've got our talking points down below, and also if you want to find us on social media, that information is sitting right below us. Craig Ladd, Corey Burton. You can find our shows, all of that good stuff. But I want to welcome you to the greatest show. One of the greatest shows on one of the greatest networks, not only the Believe Network, but also Willis Digital Media, home of the Palmcast. So we're doing it big. We're doing it right. So like I said, we are presented by betonline.ag, and it is, man, it's great to be here. We got a lot to talk about. But first, want to be remiss if I didn't say that we're back and better than ever. All eyes are on the gridiron as teams are back to start another football season. Week 2 is upon us in the NFL. Week 3 is upon us in college football. And as always, BetOnline is your number one spot for pro and college football action this season. We have a new updated site and interface and even more odds, props, and contests. I couldn't believe it to begin with. BetOnline continues to be the number one source for everything football. So head to the website, or you can use your mobile device to sign up today to receive your 100% welcome bonus. That's double your initial deposit just for signing up. Don't forget to use promo code NFL100. BetOnline, the fastest and easiest way to bet all of your favorite sports. BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts. Craig, week 2 is in the books. Lots of fun action. A weekend that I thought would be okay with a couple of good games was actually really good. What was your initial thoughts overall on week 2?
Well, I was surprised that Arkansas handled Texas the way they did. They totally dominated the Longhorns and gave them a rude awakening, a little Christmas present, if you want to say, before their foray into the conference. I was surprised at the margin of victory on that. A terrific game. That Kentucky-South Carolina game was a terrific football game. I really expected it to be, and it was. Kentucky looked really efficient on offense. The quarterback position looks to be solved. We knew they had a good running game, and I was very impressed by the Wildcats. I went to bed on Vanderbilt thinking, well, they're going to get boat raced because early on it was not pleasant. Woke up the next morning and found out that they won. So a huge win for Clark Lee, especially after laying the egg they did against ETSU in week 1.
Yeah, he needed that win there with at Colorado State. Even though it was in dramatic fashion, much like South Carolina, they just needed that win. Just to get a little more confidence. They played hard, and they were a little bit more on the same page. Again, Kentucky continues to impress me. Just they win in different ways, and they've kind of adopted the new we're going to win with whatever it takes. So apparently that turning on that light made my there you go. So yeah, I was impressed with that. I was impressed that Georgia actually covered a spread in a game where they don't usually cover the spread. I was impressed, even though in a loss, I was impressed with what Tennessee was able to do against Pitt, even when they made the quarterback change, and we'll get more into that here in just a minute. And then, of course, the Florida quarterback situation, which we'll talk about. You see that number 2 on the list, so we'll talk about that here in a minute. But let's start. Let's circle back to that Tennessee Pitt game. Joe Milton just kind of proved that he was everything that we thought he was. And yes, I think the chat just blew up with, is Hooker the right guy? I think he is. I don't know if you should give Harrison Bailey a shot. Maybe you should in this situation. I don't know. But I do think Hooker is the right guy over Joe Milton. That much I do know.
Well, Milton had his opportunities. He, overthrew passes to wide open receivers. He hits on a couple of those. Obviously, it's a different football game. Tennessee had the momentum after the block punt, and just could not capitalize on that with him missing receivers like that. He has all the measurables coming out of high school. He's got the big arm. He's got the size. But again, the accuracy is not there. It's pretty obvious. We saw it in the first game, and we've seen it again in the second game. Hooker came in. I thought he did really well. He ran the offense proficiently, ran the ball well, hit open receivers, had a bad interception there at the end of the game that cost him. I thought, he had a first down on the series where they, were stopped on 4th and inches. It was obvious he had a first down. I was watching the game and said he had a first down, and then I saw a still shot from someone on Twitter, and he's a half yard past the yard marker, so first down marker. So bad spot there. But Corey, you got 4th and inches, and you're in the pistol. That bothers me. I cannot understand that. Never will understand that. Why are you backing up 4 yards in order to get 6 inches of yardage?
I don't understand.
To me, makes
that
no
at all.
sense.
It makes no sense. You have to get under center, even if you have to practice those situations. And we practice at Hillwood. We have a play. I'm not going to tell you the name of it, but it is our quarterback sneak, and we do practice it from under center. We also do the same thing with spiking the ball when it's clock time. And you got to practice these situations to be ready for them. And there's no excuse to not be ready for it. And you shouldn't, it just makes no sense whatsoever, because more times than not.
And you hand the ball off to a true freshman in a situation like that too. Obviously, I don't think it mattered. There was nowhere to run, but I am no coach on the collegiate level, on the high school level, on the junior pro level, none of that. But I do know that if you need 6 inches, you don't back yourself up 4 yards to start to go get it. Seriously, do you think they practiced so much in that pistol that they were afraid for him to get under center that he might fumble?
It was probably not even within their thought process of, hey, let's just snap the ball and lay on the center's butt and fall forward and stretch the ball out for 6 inches. Like that, I guarantee that didn't enter their thought process, because they're so worried about pistol and they're so worried about getting everything else repped. It didn't register, I don't think.
It was, I'm not going to say that cost them the football game, but that was that to me was just a bad play.
Help.
And I'm not getting on Heupel because he's not the first coach I've seen do that. He is not. But like I said, it just makes no sense to me. All these old coaches, Bear Bryant, General Nealon, Suge Jordan, those guys were rolling over in their graves when they were watching that play.
Yeah. I've seen it happen
4 yards to get 6 inches.
I've seen that. I've seen it happen. The Florida State Clemson game. I think when Taj Boyd was quarterback. I think as far as back as that, and maybe even happened when Deshaun Watson was there too. They had it 4th and goal from the 1, and they get in shotgun, snap it over his head, turnover on downs, no points. I'm thinking you're going to go for it there, get under center, just sneak it or dive it or something. And I don't even get turning and handing the ball off 4 yards back in the backfield on 4th and inches as well. Just sneak the quarterback and just shove him forward. I mean, there's, if it's that short, there's no reason to turn and hand it off to anybody else. Just let your quarterback bury his head in there and go.
I think some of these coaches outthink themselves.
Mm-hmm.
The KISS motto of "Keep it simple, stupid." If you got 4th and inches, keep it simple, stupid. To me, most of the coaches, well, I don't want them to know what I'm doing. Who cares? Get under center and go forward 6 inches. If you don't make that 6 inches going forward like that, then you deserve to lose possession of the ball. But to start 4 yards behind the line of scrimmage, it makes zero sense to me. You give the defense a head start on getting in the backfield to you. You're not going to be able to block every one of those guys. Obviously, that's simple math. It's basically 11 on 9, if you want to look at it that way. And obviously those ends crashed in. They were basically untouched. And boom, down he goes, turnover of possession. And, that, like I said, I'm not going to say that cost Tennessee the game, but obviously that was a huge
Didn't help
turnaround in that ball game that could have tied the game up. I will say the positives. I like the way they continued to fight. They were basically down. Well, after the initial gut punch that they gave to Pitt, and then Pitt retaliated, took the lead. They were pretty much in the lead, probably 75% of the game, if not more. But Tennessee kept coming back, tying the game, getting it to 7. They kept coming back. I like that because I haven't seen that. I did not see that with Jeremy Pruitt's teams. I saw them lay down more than I saw them fight back.
Mm-hmm. And everyone in the world thought Tennessee, as soon as Pitt jumped up the way they did, they thought, okay, here we go. But Tennessee proved us wrong there, and they have some fight, which I was very, very impressed with. And that lends me to believe that this is just once we get a few more guys in here and build a little bit of depth, we're going to be okay. We're going to actually be pretty good. And so that to me stood out, because Tennessee is not at the point where they're going to win these type of games, because A, they're not used to it. They're used to rolling over and folding like a cheap suit. 2, they don't have the depth because they lost everybody in the transfer portal, and you had nothing left. And so your starters and your good players get gassed. They can't finish down the stretch. Now, once you get some guys in there and you get a legitimate 2 deep, Craig, sky's the limit for this ball club. And to me, the way they're playing and the way they fought back leads me to believe that Heupel is the right guy.
Well, they played most of the game, which hurt also, with their 3rd string quarterback, the true freshman, and Wright. Tyan Evans didn't play. And then Jabari Small gets hurt early on after scoring a touchdown. I don't think it was right after that play, but he was hurt early on, was not in the game. So basically you're riding your 3rd string running back, and he's a freshman. That hurt, I thought, some, because like I said, it doesn't matter when he's 3rd string for a reason. And I think it kind of took them out of really more of their game of wanting to run the ball. I think it took them out of that a little bit. It made them, I think, rely more on Hooker to run the ball, who was very effective in running the ball. And Milton had a 50-plus yard run when he was in there. So I think that those reasons took them out of some of their game plan that they wanted to run the football with the running backs.
Yeah, no doubt. And very good game plan there. They'll finish those games eventually. So let's jump down to our first conference matchup of the season. Kentucky hosting Missouri. Very good back and forth game. A game that saw Chris Rodriguez rush for over 200 yards on 27 carries. You also had Wan'Dale Robinson, who had a game. He had 3 carries for 73 yards. Also had 5 catches on 101 yards. So he was about 80% of the passing offense for Kentucky. Will Levis had a 10 for 18, 179 type day, but when you only have to throw 18 passes and you score 35 points, you're in good shape. So, very good game plan with Kentucky, again, showing that they have a little bit of resourcefulness. They stick with what's working, which, again, going back to your point earlier in the Tennessee game where coaches outcoach themselves and thinking, okay, I've got to, get cute. And Kentucky said, nope, Chris Rodriguez is running. We're going to run him till they stop him. Missouri never really stopped him, and Kentucky won the game. So that's what stood out to me, really. It's just the overall dominance up front for Kentucky, especially running the ball offensively. But just really, this game, yeah, it was a 7-point game, but it never really felt like it was, out of reach. I never really felt like Kentucky was going to lose control of this thing.
No, I didn't either, and I thought the Kentucky fans were very into the ball game, and I thought that helped them, uh, you know, uh, in the end to be able to pull that out. I obviously to me the big difference in the ball game was Rodriguez, rushing for 206. Basically Kentucky stopped the run, and they were able to run and control the clock. That's a recipe for a win any day of any football game. It's a recipe for a win.
Yeah, exactly. And when they can do that, they shorten the game. They hold the ball, and they just really just kind of dominate up front. And there's nothing really Missouri can do about that. Again, Kentucky's got to do a better job if they want to compete to be able to finish teams off. And I think Mark Stoops admitted that himself. But you look at 519 yards of total offense, 340 rushing as a team, which is incredible. They got to clean up the turnovers. I think that kept Missouri in it. One fumble, one interception, and they got to get a little bit better on third down. Penalties were okay. Missouri had 7 penalties for 65 yards, so that didn't help their cause. But, Kentucky, if they want to compete, they got to play a cleaner game. They're going to have to do that against Florida, and they're definitely going to have to do it against Georgia to even give themselves a chance. Anything else you want to add on this game, Craig?
I couldn't quite understand you there, Corey. You were kind of broke up on me.
Uh-oh. Yeah, I was just saying that Kentucky, one of the things that about this game is Kentucky needs to do a better job of finishing people off. Playing a little bit cleaner. I think when you look at why Missouri was in this game, it was just I think the turnover battle. Kentucky gave it away twice in crucial situations. So that if they take care of the ball a little bit better, they might give themselves a chance.
Well, I think too, we talked about you always want to win your initial conference game, and you picked Kentucky to finish second in the East. I picked them to finish third, and I said I thought this game might be the deciding factor right off the bat. And Kentucky comes out on top, which I expected them to do, and obviously I think that solidifies them to finish third. Of course, a lot can happen between now and the end of the season, but I think that they definitely have the talent to possibly get up to second and knock off Florida. I guess I'm buying a little more than I was early on. I still give Florida a slight advantage, but I think the gap is closed with what I've seen with Kentucky. If they're able to run the ball like that consistently, they're going to win football games. They're going to be tough to stop. Now, do I expect them to run like that, against Georgia, for example? No, I do not. But, they run like that against Tennessee. They run like that against Vanderbilt. They run like that against Florida. I think they can beat the Gators.
Yeah, I think so too. And we'll talk about why, as far as the quarterback situation comes in a little bit. Want to brush through 2 games real quick. A little bit of reaction to 2 games. South Carolina needing a last-second field goal to push ahead of East Carolina on the road, and of course Georgia's thrashing of UAB with a backup quarterback. So let's start with South Carolina. Again, turnovers, penalties. They put them in a hole. Thought East Carolina was going to run away with it. It looked like it for a second, but South Carolina again. I'll give them this: they have absolutely zero talent. but they play hard. And that's what stood out to me. Rushing, aggressive defense. They stuck with their game plan. They didn't panic, and they came out on top. And so when you look at it on the surface, it's like an SEC team should never struggle with the group of 5 team, especially one that's been down like East Carolina. But in some cases, when you're in a situation like this where you're in a total rebuild, the, everything's been cleaned out, brand new coach, never been a head coach before, you know, just the turmoil that South Carolina has been in, this is some good positive momentum. Now, is this going to lead them to win the East? No, absolutely not. They may not finish dead last now, but this gets them a little bit of positive momentum because they play hard, they fight, they believe in their coach, and I think they can use that in recruiting. And I think once they get some pieces there, they might be pretty tough too. So, what stood out to you about the South Carolina game?
Well, I thought it was a good win by South Carolina because arguably this is probably East Carolina's biggest game of the year. So obviously they came in, they were very fired up. They had an early lead on South Carolina, and the Gamecocks fought back. I mean, at this point, if you're Coach Beamer, you're going to take any win you can get. It doesn't matter, and especially if it's on the road. And like I said, I figured this game would be tight. Obviously, the line was low, and I actually picked East Carolina to cover, but they did not. And with the field goal by South Carolina, but I figured it would be a tough game.
Yeah, and it was. I mean, it played out exactly like we thought it would. I picked South Carolina just because I thought they would push ahead, just based on the fact that they have SEC talent versus Group of 5 talent, and that ended up being true in a little bit more difficult way. 3 turnovers in a road game usually never gets you over the hump. Never usually gets you a 2 touchdown loss. But they had a trick play, which is always good. That gives them a little confidence. But my main takeaway there, they fought through some adversity, and that's important when you have a new team and a new culture and new things that are happening. So, moving up to Athens, Georgia hosted UAB in their home opener. Again, breaking in a new quarterback. Injury to JT Daniels, strained his oblique muscle, was ruled out later on in the week after we had recorded. And when there was a little bit of controversy as far as who was going to start. Was it going to be Stetson? Was it going to be Carson Beck? Because Carson Beck was officially listed as number 2 on the depth chart. But when we came to the game, he was still listed as number 2 on the depth chart. And Stetson Bennett was QB1 for this week. Stetson Bennett then took that opportunity. He went 10 of 12 for 288 yards and 5 touchdowns. At one point, he was 5 for 5 with 5 touchdowns. It was an insane stat line there. Stetson Bennett was dealing. Brock Bowers had 3 catches, 107 yards. He scored twice. He's Georgia's leading receiver at tight end. When Darnell Washington comes back, he may not come back into a starting role. Brock Bowers may have literally ran away with it, as he was clocked at 21.9 miles per hour on his long touchdown. Georgia looked impressive. This was a game I thought, okay, JT Daniels is out. There's some COVID issues. UAB is a good team, Conference USA champions. Bill Clark, well-coached team, big spread. I was like, this is going to be – they're not covering. There's no way. And, boy, did they cover. It was 56-0 into the middle of the fourth quarter when they finally gave it the shutout. But overall, Georgia just came out and played. They finally, for the first time in a while, and they never usually do this, but they played to a standard. They didn't play to an opponent. And they kept that standard, and they just kept their foot on the throttle, which is something I haven't seen yet out of a Georgia team, even going back to the Mark Richt days.
Well, I thought that Georgia would have a little bit of a hangover going into this game. I really did, and obviously they did not. They were impressive, obviously defensively, which they showed in the Clemson game also. But Corey, as a Georgia fan, are you a little concerned that the running game has been it's not been very good? I can understand against Clemson, but I thought they'd run the ball a little better than they did against UAB.
It is concerning, but I think it starts with the offensive line. They're doing some shuffling there. Warren Erickson's not a guard. I don't know why they continue. I don't know why they just are. I get it for the first game. You want an experienced guy at left tackle against that defensive line, but you're playing UAB. Go ahead and throw the redshirt freshman in there, Broderick Jones at left tackle. Go ahead and bring Jamar Sawyer inside, push Justin Schaefer over to the right guard position. I think that's your best lineup, especially since Tate Ratledge went out. But we're just having trouble continuity-wise on the offensive line. I think that's where a lot of the run game issues happen.
Yeah, like I said, if you look at the stats, you see 56-7, and you think, oh well, they just shoved the ball down their throat. But I mean, Bennett was, wow, he was impressive. He was 10 of 12, 288, 5 touchdowns. I mean, he was on point the entire game, and obviously Georgia got to play a lot of people, played a lot of running backs, and like I said, it's a good win because I expected them to have a little bit of a hangover from the Clemson game. I expected them to win, but I didn't expect 56-7. I thought they might struggle a little bit, win by maybe 21 points. Never expected them to, just sprint away from UAB like they did.
Yeah, it was impressive. Defense did their thing. Even the backups, I thought it's the walk-ons. So, very impressive win there. Can they keep it up? There's another huge line this week with South Carolina. We'll get to that in our pick segment. But the chat is alive and well. There's a lot of things in the chat. We're going to get into our thoughts on the quarterback situation at Florida. So we're going to answer that. The Georgia-South Carolina line, does it surprise me? Yes, it's a ridiculous line for a conference game. Do I think UJ will hit it? Well, you're just going to hang on to find out. If you're watching ULL versus Ohio over the NFL game, no, you don't have issues. You just don't like watching bad NFC East football. And, yes, I'm looking forward to OU Nebraska. Because it's an old Big 12 rivalry and because Nebraska is pitiful. And anytime you get a chance to see them lose, maybe this is a nail in the coffin for Scott Frost. Maybe USC hires Scott Frost. I don't know. And then we already answered, I think Hooker's the right guy. So Florida quarterback situation, Craig, it is just that. It is a situation. There's no controversy because we all know who the best quarterback is, and that's Anthony Richardson. But the situation is this. Do you play him against Bama? Or do you start him against Bama, I should say? What do you think?
I'd say no. I think they'll start Emory Jones at quarterback against Alabama, but I think Alabama will get a healthy dose of Richardson. Obviously, he brings a lot to the table, and it's more for Alabama to have to game plan for also. As we've seen in the Tennessee game and also, the Florida game, if you've got a mobile running quarterback, it causes problems for the defense. They have a hard time accounting for him. And we have seen some big numbers from the quarterback position so far rushing the football for Florida. And, both of the guys, they both threw the ball well. They combined for 303 yards and 3 touchdowns, Richardson and Emory Jones. And, and then they were the top 2 rushers. So, obviously that two-headed monster is going to have to replicate those numbers or best them in order to beat Alabama.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's no doubt running the ball. I never had any doubt in Emory Jones running the ball. Never. And same with Anthony Richardson. I didn't know he's going to be quite as talented of a runner as he is. So that's a pleasant surprise there. or if you're a Florida fan, definitely a pleasant surprise. If you're a Georgia fan, probably not. But and you hope that they continue to start Emory Jones because he has accuracy problems. So when you look at the stats that they put up, you would think that they covered the spread, things like that. But again, they need to have one of these two needs to step up and become more of a complete quarterback, because what Alabama's going to do is they're going to force whichever one of them is in there to beat them with their arm. And which one, obviously I think Anthony Richardson throws a little bit better than Emory Jones, but still neither one of them are very polished in my mind. So, that this is where I think they're going to struggle to figure out who this guy is, which one is the best fit. Can Emory Jones still get it done? I'm going to stand by that. I don't think that he does or can. And eventually they start Anthony Richardson. And eventually they realize that and get him ready for the future. So, you've got to take that. And maybe you ease him in. Maybe you work him in the Alabama game and see what he can do. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe they surprise everybody and start him. Who knows what Dan Mullen has up his sleeve. But right now, if you have two, the old saying is, if you have two quarterbacks, you really don't have one. So they don't have the guy they can rely on, the guy that says, okay, it's crunch time. We need 7. Let's go with. And they can't answer that question. And that's where the quarterback situation stands in Florida.
I mean, we both talked about preseason that Florida's, they're basically their best weapon at rushing the ball would be from the quarterback position. It's proven to be right the first 2 games, no doubt about it.
It's always right in the Dan Mullen offense. This is what his offense is. The Kyle Trask system is obviously different, but because Kyle Trask's not really a runner. But now that you got your runners back in, that's what he does. He features the quarterback.
I agree that, to me, I think Mullen goes with experience with Emory Jones to start against a big game against Alabama. But I don't think he will, and obviously he hasn't, hesitate in playing Richardson for an entirety of the game if Jones is not playing very well and sticking with him. I don't think he has a problem with that at all. I think it presents a problem for Alabama. You try to game plan for certain quarterbacks, and now you've got 2 you got to worry about. You got to worry about them throwing the ball. You got to worry about that, and the most important thing is running the football. Breakdowns defensively is where the quarterback really capitalizes and gains yardage, and that's something that Alabama is going to really have to watch. Obviously, they haven't had many breakdowns since Saban's been there, so it's going to be interesting to see how they game plan against Florida in order to stop the rushing game from the quarterback position.
Well, the good thing about it is this might be one of Nick Saban's most talented secondaries, so they might can just go cover 0 and load everybody up in the box and say, beat us. Because they don't have Pitts. They don't have Kadarius Toney. They don't have the talent that they had last year out at the wide receiver spot. So the passing game is not quite the passing game that we've been used to the last couple of years with Florida. So you're gonna get into a situation to where, again, the defense is going to dictate, okay, beat us through the air, and where Florida's quarterback situation is lacking at this moment, it could be better later. But where it's lacking at this current moment, at this current juncture, is they're not very dynamic through the air. And I don't think they can be able to throw this against this Alabama secondary. So when you look at it, all things equal, do you go with the freshman more? Do you go with Richardson more? I think, we keep circling back around to who gives you the best chance to win. what are the factors of this decision? Because there's going to have to be, it's going to be more than just, hey, we got to start the experienced guy against Alabama, because you do have to put these guys in tough situations. But again, you have to be worried that you still have a chance to ruin Richardson. Emory is what he is, but you still have a chance to ruin Richardson. So do you do that? Do you risk that? Where do you put your, risk management comes into this. Where do you put your risk? Where do you hold it? Where do you fold it? Where do you, push your chips in?
Well, it's going to be interesting too to see that if Florida is able to run against Alabama with just their base defense, if they force Alabama to bring a safety down to go 8-man in the box, then obviously that gives them an advantage in the passing game more than they would have had. Even though, as you mentioned, Corey, you know, uh, even though they've had some gaudy stats against some inferior opponents, when you start playing SEC teams and have SEC caliber cornerbacks, it's going to be tougher to beat those guys. It's going to be tougher. You're going to have to really throw in traffic in order to make receptions. You're going to have to, you're going to have to throw the ball up. You're going to have your receiver to out battle the defensive back, because it's just not, that window of being open when you start playing SEC teams is very narrow. Versus some other teams, and that's just common sense, when you're playing SEC schools, they're recruiting SEC talent, and that goes with the defensive backs, and you're just not going to be able to find that big of an opening of windows. You're going to have to really throw some balls in traffic and small windows in order to beat Alabama. They're not going to give you anything. They are not. They're very, very talented on defense. We've seen that already. How they destroyed Miami. So they have incredible talent on that side of the ball, and they're going to force you to beat them. They're not going to beat themselves. You're going to have to make plays to beat them.
Absolutely. And Anthony Richardson will be the quarterback for the Georgia game. I do agree with that comment there. And the question here is, Craig, what happens if Alabama jumps on Florida early? What does that do to the confidence situation? What does that do for either one of these guys?
Well, I think obviously it's going to be interesting. Neither one of them has a lot of experience in order to battle back from adversity. I don't think Emory Jones played a decent amount last year, but he never was in pressure situations where he had to take his team down the field and score in order to win the game. And obviously Richardson hasn't had to do that in the first two ball games. So they are going to have to, if they get jumped on early, they could be shell shocked, and it could be I guess a game that you will turn off in the third quarter. How's that? And go to another game.
Yeah, I mean, that happened very quickly in the Miami game. I feel like that could happen now with Grantham's style of defense. And I guess we're just going to roll right into our week 3 preview. So with this type of game, when you look at Florida's defense and what they bring to the table, this is not a very good matchup with stylistic play, because Grantham's defense is predicated on making big plays, and they take a lot of big risk, and they leave a lot of big gaps, a lot of big holes, especially vertically. So I think Alabama has a chance to get some shots on them vertically. If they can do that, my God, they can build some confidence, and it's not going to be pretty, and it's going to turn into what the Miami game was. If they hit too many, if they let them hit too many of these shots.
Yeah, like I said, I think it could turn ugly. This game really could. A lot of the point spread is obviously is shocking. I mean, if you look at it, I don't know when the last time Florida was that big of an underdog on their home field. I'm sure it was. I'm sure it was pre-Spurrier.
Mhm.
So that's been a long time ago.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not sure kind of where it has went wrong for Florida. Maybe recruiting. They haven't hit on some of the prospects that they normally hit on. So again, for Florida, the keys for Florida to win. Again, they're going to have to steal possession somewhere, whether it be special teams, turnovers, things like that. They're going to have to. Their defense is going to have to take the football away. The defense is going to have to hit on some of these big plays, some of these big havoc plays, and create some momentum for themselves. Because if they just try to grind this one out, it ain't gonna happen for them. I promise you that. Offensively, they're gonna have to figure out some way to beat them through the air. They can't nickel and dime this defense. They can't give them opportunities over and over to make plays. They have to hit them with chunk plays, big plays, things like that, things that get the crowd jacked up and into it. And this crowd is what this team feeds off of. The Swamp is a really tough place to play. Alabama's walking into a very hostile environment, so Florida's got that going for them. But right now, honestly, that's really all they got going for them because, again, they lost a lot of depth and they lost a lot of talent. Alabama did not. And so when you look at these talent discrepancies, it's a little bit overmatched in Alabama's favor. And for Florida, they almost have to play perfectly to win this game.
Well, and I think too, Florida's going to need some help from Alabama, as in Alabama beating themselves. And let's face it, that rarely happens when a Nick Saban team beats itself. It just does not happen. It has happened, but it is few and far between. And I just don't see that happening. I don't see them beating themselves.
Mm-mm.
I see superior talent on Alabama's side of the ball versus Florida. And as you mentioned, Florida lost uh, so much firepower offensively that it's just extremely tough to overcome that. And I just don't see it. I mean, arguably, Alabama's defense is. I'll say it. So far, I think it's been better than it was last year. Obviously, they started off bad and got better as the year went on, and then gave up a lot to Florida. But I think this squad right here is better, a better defensive team than last year's. Now, obviously, you're missing Mac Jones, who's starting for the New England Patriots, and Najee Harris, who's starting for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But what I've seen from Bryce Young, it didn't look like he's going to miss a beat as far as Florida, as Alabama goes offensively. He has been very impressive. You and I talked. I thought this would, and I still think this is the year that Georgia gets them. But I'll have to say this: I was impressed. I expected them to be a little bit sluggish against Miami coming out, but that was not the case at all.
No, and I thought Bill O'Brien was going to struggle because Bill O'Brien is not Steve Sarkisian. But again, he's in tune. He's got a smart quarterback, a quarterback that's very savvy and can get him into good plays. He makes plays. He makes good throws. He makes things go. He makes things right. No matter how bad the call, he makes things right for Alabama. So, again, when you have that much talent, when you have that many options, it's pretty easy to call plays. And I'm not saying being an offensive coordinator is easy. I'm just saying when you have that much talent, you're usually more talented than I'm certainly expecting Alabama to jump all over them. Wouldn't be surprised if Florida hung in there and made this a game. Again, Florida's not a bad team. They're just not quite where they're part of an NIL deal with the J-Boy Show and Volume Sports. So congrats to him. He hosted his first podcast this week. So Bryce Young is a multi-million-dollar multimedia superstar. Not a whole lot of excitement within the Eastern Division. Obviously, you look at Florida, which the game we just talked about, that's the game of the week for the entire conference. It's going to be pretty good. You have Georgia with a huge line against South Carolina in a conference matchup. Kentucky hosting Chattanooga, Missouri hosting SEMO. What we expect in some of these other games, but let's talk about this. Let's talk about this game, Stanford at Vanderbilt. What are we looking for here? This is, don't know how this one's going to shake out.
Well, I agree with you. Stanford's an 11-point favorite in this ball game, and the way Vanderbilt came back against Colorado State, I was impressed because, like I said, I moved on to another game, turned it off because it looked like things were going to get out of hand, and Vanderbilt got back into the game and kicked a field goal and won. That's been one of the weaknesses Vanderbilt's had in recent memory, has been the lack of a field goal kicker, and obviously that was a big kick and big win for them. It's going to be, Stanford comes in. They're not overwhelming by any stretch of the imagination, and it's a game that is winnable for Vanderbilt. They can win this game, and it would be a very good win and a very, I guess, nationally recognized win if they knocked off Stanford, which would obviously help the program immensely.
Yeah, especially after that disaster there. I mean, Ken Seals had a much better outing against Colorado State, and the defense came through a little bit, had some key stops. They were able to do a little bit. The offense still not moving really all that well. It's still a work in progress. They still got a long way to go, but they're starting to get there. They have some good wide receivers, and the thing that stands out to me there with Vanderbilt is they're going to have to try to use, because Stanford's a bigger, more physical team. They're built more like an old school power team, and Vanderbilt has some speed on the outside with some of these receivers, most notably Cam Johnson. And if they want to have a chance at this game, they have to figure out some things through the air. Ken Seals is going to have another good game, an even better game than he did at Colorado State. And these wide receivers are going to have to make some big plays. And they're going to have to figure out a way to use the speed, what little speed advantage they have. That's what they've got to do.
Vanderbilt has a small margin for error, and
they always do.
Yeah, and they're going to have to play a flawless football game in order to win this ball game. They cannot beat themselves. They cannot give Stanford short fields on turnovers, etc. And if they can play sound offensively and defensively, I think they will be in this ball game. Do I think they're going to win? No, I don't. But I think they can be in the ball game. I think, I would take Stanford and lay the 11. I think they're going to win by, I think it'll be a close game till the end. I think, they'll win by 14 points, but I think Vanderbilt will, take the momentum they had in the second half of that Colorado State game and move forward with it.
Yeah, I think so too. And confidence is a big thing, especially if you're home and hosting a West Coast team, flying to the Central Time Zone, playing at night. It's going to be interesting to see kind of how that dynamic shakes out, because it's not a dynamic that happens a ton. Vanderbilt is one of those places where you come in and it's hard to really get excited. It's hard to kind of get that big game atmosphere at the Dud. And when you look at Vanderbilt, sometimes they can use that to their advantage. Like Auburn comes in a few years back when James Franklin was still there, and Auburn comes into the Dud, and it's one of those atmospheres where it's like it's an 11 a.m. kick, and there's just not much happening, and all of a sudden they lose the game. Right? This is going to be a night game, probably sparsely attended, because I doubt Stanford fans travel really all that well. It's going to be sparsely populated. There's not going to be much happening. There's not going to be much excitement around this game, and Vanderbilt could use that mundane environment to maybe gain some momentum, to build their fan base back up and say, oh, we do have a football team, and oh, we don't suck. and for Stanford to kind of like get lulled to sleep.
I hope they have a good crowd. I think that
I hope they
that
do
team
too. I just don't
deserves
think
a
they
good
do.
crowd. Do I expect a good crowd? No, I don't. But I think, obviously, it will be. I think there'll be more Vanderbilt fans than Stanford fans, which is usually not the case when Vanderbilt is playing in conference. They. I hope it's well attended.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so 7 o'clock start, should be beautiful weather, nice and cool, and I hope people come out and support Vanderbilt and watch this game. Give Clark Lee a chance. I know if you attended the East Tennessee State game, I know you went home and said probably that's the last game I'm coming to. But there is hope after knocking off Colorado State, and you got a chance. You got a chance to knock off a name opponent. Stanford's known nationwide. They've had some very good talent. They've had some very good teams in the past. So that would be a very, very good win for Vanderbilt. I guess a statement win for Vanderbilt. It's one that they haven't had. They haven't knocked off a non-conference major opponent in quite some time.
Now's the chance to do it. Here we go.
Yeah. Well,
so
I'd say since James Franklin.
yeah,
For
and
sure.
as a member, the charter member of the Kinseals fan club has joined the chat saying Vandy has to play clean. Stanford has to play sloppy in order for Vandy to win. So it's kind of like one of those perfect storm scenarios where, Vanderbilt gets one through special teams. Maybe they get a kick return, a punt blocked, or get something happening, some crazy play. They're probably going to hit a trick play somewhere. Stanford's going to have to commit a bunch of penalties or, not take care of the ball and have 3-4 turnovers, something like that, I think, for Vandy to have a chance to win. Otherwise, if this game goes toe-to-toe, Stanford's going to win this one because Stanford is better right now. So looking at Georgia, South Carolina, what a freaking line. 31.5 points, man. It's crazy. Have you ever seen a line in the SEC? I've seen it in the Big 12, but have you ever seen a line this ridiculous?
I haven't. There were some big lines on Tennessee last year, but they never got up to 31 points. I'm going to take South Carolina in the game. That 31 is just hard for me to turn down. And I'll say this because I took UAB last week. If I lose this time, then I won't be betting against the Dogs the rest of the season. How's that?
Yeah, absolutely. But the funny thing is that with this, well, not the funny thing, but the crazy part is what Georgia doesn't. I don't feel like Georgia has to score 50 points to cover this spread because their defense is so good right now that I don't think South Carolina can score. I think
I
think
you're
Zeb
right.
Nolan's
I mean,
get
I could
beat
see
around.
34-0, and that'd be the final score. I definitely could see that.
Yeah.
42-7, something like that. I agree with you 100% on that.
And usually when you see these big spreads, it's like, okay, I'm taking the points because, the one team's going to have to score 60 points in order to cover this thing. And that's not the case here because Georgia's defense is so good. So, the good thing, the one thing South Carolina may have in its favor as far as covering this spread is the fact that JT Daniels is probably not going to play in this game. They're probably going to do everything they can to get him ready next week for Arkansas. But I think that Stetson Bennett came in and played a hell of a game. Stetson Bennett, man, I'm not going to say he's better than JT Daniels, but he's pretty damn close. He can throw. He threw some dimes last week against UAB. He had some clean pockets. Again, UAB is not a team. They're not Akron. They're not, South Florida. They're not one of these pitiful group of 5 teams. They're conference champion 2 out of the last 3 years, actually, in what's a pretty competitive conference. And Stetson Bennett was able to throw some dimes. And can he do that again? We shall see. I mean, if he gets clean pockets, he will. Georgia's receivers are getting a little bit healthier. Kyrus Jackson could factor into this game plan. Arian Smith had a better go at it. Jermaine Burton is a little bit more healthier. And then of course Brock Bowers, who's your number one target, and they need to figure out how to get this run game going. So the one thing that I'll say about Georgia is in fact the run game. If they're going to win, if they're going to cover, if they're going to do all that stuff, the run game has to get going, and that's just what it is.
Well, it's a huge luxury for Kirby Smart to have a backup quarterback with the experience that Bennett has had and when I say experience, I don't mean experience against UAB. Nothing against UAB, but I'm talking experience against the big
Alabama.
boys. Yeah.
He
has
led
been
Alabama
in big
at half.
games.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's been in big games. That is a really nice luxury to have your backup quarterback to be able to come in and play as well as he did against UAB and have the kind of experience. Nothing's going to phase him. The kind of experience that he's had in big games, and that's a big luxury for Kirby Smart.
Absolutely. And another big luxury, literally, is Jordan Davis. The dude is built like an industrial refrigerator and runs like a tight end. It's scary. It's scary.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that I think probably this week, I think there's more of a concerted effort to get that ground game churning more than it has been. Obviously, it hasn't been what I expected it to be in the first two games. So I think that you're going to see them really try to pound it down South Carolina's throat running the football.
And they were able to a lot last year. I mean, the running game was outstanding.
Right, absolutely.
I remember James Cook had the game of his life against South Carolina last year. Can they do it again? It's at home. It's at night. You'll have to wait another few minutes for me to reveal my pick. But for South Carolina to have any chance defensively, they're just going to have to be stingy. They're going to have to make Georgia drive the ball every single possession. They can't give up these big plays. If they're going to have a chance, they have to do that. They have to play perfectly. They have to steal a possession. They have to do something in special teams, which is Beamer's expertise. So, do I think South Carolina can win? Yeah, it's a conference game. Back in 2019, I still have PTSD from the game that saved Will Muschamp's job for a season. Where Jake Fromm had a nightmare game through 3 picks, 1 pick six, and they couldn't do anything. And South Carolina ended up winning at Georgia. So that's in the back of my mind. Can South Carolina win? Yeah, absolutely. Will they? No, not at all. And can Georgia cover the spread? Maybe, maybe not. But when it comes to a conference game, I'll take the win over the cover.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt about that. You definitely don't, could care less about that. We like to talk about things that makes the games interesting. If you're, going against the spread, it makes it definitely more interesting if you don't have a dog in the hunt and make you pay attention to the game. But as I said before, the 31 points is just too inviting for me. I got burned last week with UAB, but I'm back on the horse again, and I'm taking points against Georgia.
There you go. Don't let that horse buck you, right? Well, as we move into our picks, we're going to pick more than just Eastern games here. We're going to pick all SEC games, including Oklahoma and Texas. I guess you consider them SEC too, right? So there is some exciting news. Again, I said we were presented by betonline.ag. Also, playactionpools.com is getting in the mix this season. They're going to bring some interactive fun to the sport that we love most. You'll be able to get in on the action with our playactionpools.com football pick'em challenge, which is open to everyone. Here's how it works. You're going to sign up for our contest, Believe Football Pick'em, at playactionpools.com and get your picks in each week. We're going to select the 10 highest profile games of the week between the NFL and college football. Whoever gets the most picks correct will win a pair of electric sunglasses. Electric is a brand. I looked it up last night. And a pair of DC shoes. So you get some shoes and some sunglasses. Go to playactionpools.com, sign up for the contest, Believe, BLEAV, Football Pick'em. And if you plan on hosting your own football contest, you can do that as well. Go to playactionpools.com. They've got survivors, they've got pick'ems, and a cool sportsbook style concept called Build Your Bankroll. I'm going to hashtag that. Still not sure really what that is. I haven't really looked. I haven't made my picks yet on Play Action Pools. I need to go do that. So playactionpools.com is your new home for your office sports pools. So let's get into our picks, shall we? Craig, our first game on the table. We're going to go over to the West. New Mexico traveling to Texas A&M. If you listened to me on SEC After Dark last night, you know where I'm about to go. However, Craig, how do you see this game shaking out? Can Texas A&M cover this spread?
I think they will. They struggled against Colorado, lost their starting quarterback in that ball game, but found a way to win. I think they're going to play very well. I think they will cover that spread.
They found a way to win, but are they going to find a way to cover 20.5 points? No, they'll beat New Mexico, and it'll be one of those like 34-14 type games where it's, out of reach for a while. But A&M struggled. A&M struggled. They struggled offensively. They had a hard time moving the ball. I'm not sure what's out of sync there. I mean, Calzada was in the running for starting quarterback, so, you ought to think that he's got some ability, right? But then again, there's some factors that go into play, and maybe his first full week as the starter will bring some new life into this offense. I don't know. And because I don't know, I'm going to go ahead and take the points here. I think A&M wins, but they don't cover, much like this is going to play out like the Florida-South Florida game last week. Next game on the table, we talked about it. You may have given away your pick, but if you're just now tuning in, Alabama travels to the Swamp. They're 16.5 point favorites as it stands right now. Does Alabama cover that, Craig?
Yes. That's all I need to say.
Yes. And if you need to know why, when our live stream is done or when the audio podcast pops up, you can go ahead and just rewind. All right. Next game, Georgia Southern at Arkansas, 23.5 point favorites for the Hogs. Can they stay up and cover this spread?
I thought about them a little bit of a hangover from the Texas game with Arkansas. It was such a huge win for them, but I still think they're gonna be able to produce enough points and limit them defensively in order to cover the spread.
Yeah, I think defensively they're just gonna lock down Georgia Southern. I think Georgia Southern's gonna have a hard time moving the ball and have a hard time scoring. And I think Arkansas with KJ Jefferson, they're going to continue to polish him as a passer, which needs to happen. I think out of all the running quarterbacks in the SEC, I think KJ Jefferson definitely is my favorite. I think he definitely has the most potential, and he plays in a system that's most conducive for a quarterback of his skill set. So I'm going to go with the Hogs here. I think they cover. And that actually, no, there's not a clean sweep of that. So never mind. Our next game, Mississippi State, 3-point road favorites at Memphis. Mississippi State, I doubted them last week.
I did too.
They proved me wrong. But their offense still kind of struggled to move the ball a little bit. They got a special teams touchdown. Their defense was on point. which is the most important in a close game. And as we talked about on SEC After Dark last night, when it's a spread this close, you might as well just pick who you think is going to win the game. So, Craig, how do you see it?
This was a tough pick, Corey. I went back and forth on this one and eventually decided to go with Memphis in this ball game, getting the 3 points at home. But I'm not very it was a 51-49. How's that? That's how close it was. I was really on the fence on this and on where to go, but I'll take the Tigers.
Well, I'm going to learn my lesson here. I'm at least going to pick Mississippi State this week when things are a little bit more even. I didn't know things were as even as they were or as in favor with Mississippi State as they were last week. NC State laid an egg. Quite frankly, they saw the SEC logo and they folded. Does Memphis do that? I don't know, but I think Mississippi State's going to be too much for them. Our next game, the game we just talked about, South Carolina at Georgia. Georgia 31.5-point favorites. You have South Carolina. You are picking the points. We've already discussed this. I'm taking the dogs because why not? Right? Why not? I picked Georgia last week. They covered, which is rare. So there you go. We already discussed that, so no need to rehash it. The game we need to hash. This is probably one of the games of the week in the country. Auburn travels to Penn State to Happy Valley. 6-point underdogs at Penn State. Craig, can Auburn cover and or win?
Well, I'm taking Auburn and the points in this ball game. I don't necessarily know that they'll win this game. It wouldn't surprise me if they won, but I think the points. I'm going to take those points. I wasn't overly impressed with Penn State. I think the number 10 ranking in the country is a little bit lofty for them. I don't think they're the 10th best team in the country, and I like Auburn's talent. Tank's going to have a big game in order for them to pull this out, and I think he's very capable of that.
He is, and I said last night that this game is going to come down to Bo Nix. What can Bo do? Because the running backs are going to wash, right? You got Noah Cain versus Tank Bigsby in the backfield. And then you got Sean Clifford and Bo Nix as the quarterback matchup. And what do we know about Bo? Good Bo, bad Bo. He's very inconsistent. He's very much of a roller coaster. And you really can't get an idea of what he's like when you play Akron and Alabama State and you 60 burger him, right? There's a certain thing called false hope that you can get with that. And I think Auburn has a lot of that right now. I don't think they're as good as they think they are. I don't think they're as good as people think they are, or as good as these scores of these last two games reflect. Yeah, it's impressive anytime you put up 60 on anybody, but you have to pump the brakes here, especially in this environment. You have 107,000 screaming fans, all wearing white. Penn State at home in this environment is a nightmare of a matchup. Just ask Ohio State. The home environment is going to be tough. It's going to be tough on Bo. And can he overcome a lot of his inconsistencies that haven't shown up this year, but definitely will against a team like Penn State? Can he do that? I don't think that he can. I don't think that Auburn is ready to win this game. I think Penn State went on the road at Wisconsin and won a very tough ball game in Camp Randall to open up the season. I think that's going to help them in this game because when things get tight, Auburn, with this new coaching staff, is not really going to know how to handle themselves. Penn State does. The only thing I think Auburn has really going for it is the distractions with James Franklin this week in the USC job. So, but after all of that, I'm still sticking with Penn State. Our next game, Central Michigan, the Shark Humper. We've seen them before. Week 1, they impressed me against Missouri. They come in to LSU 19.5-point underdogs. This is a lot of points for a team that has a lot of turmoil off the field. Craig, what do you think?
I think so. I get it. I thought the line was a little bit high myself, but I think that they're going to have they're still a little chapped by what happened against UCLA, and I think uh, I think Orgeron needs he needs to win ball games because let's be quite honest. Um, his seat is getting is warming. I'll say that, and I think he knows that obviously he's got to win. Uh, the bar has been set high at LSU. They have plenty of talent, and they're going to have to play better than they did against LSU, especially defensively. Their defense has really fallen off the last two seasons. So I think there's a sense of urgency there, and I think LSU covers.
Hmm. I think Ed Orgeron seat's red hot right now. And a lot of it is because of the off the field stuff. Like John Emery can't play because he's taking the wrong classes. I don't buy that. I don't buy that at all. There's some stuff happening. There's some if half of the stuff that's been reported or rumored or anything is true, it's a bad situation for LSU and Ed Orgeron. Do I think they win? Yes. Do I think they win by 20? No. I think they win this game. I think they win this game by 17 points. Um, Whatever that score looks like. I think they win by 17 points. They're a team that is struggling culturally. They're I think they're still reeling after that UCLA game. They just didn't play anybody. They played McNeese last week. So I mean that was a get well game for them. This is a more real of an opponent. They have a chance to lose this game because Central Michigan's a competitive group. They're not going to come in here and roll over just because it's LSU. So I think Central Michigan's going to cover. So I'm going to take the points here. Stanford Vanderbilt. We talked about how this one's going to play out. Craig, I'm going with Stanford here. I think Stanford's going to cover. They're going to win by 14. It might be sluggish at first. It might be a slugfest at first, but I think Stanford does pull away. What do you think?
I, I agree with you. I think I don't think it's a big cover. Like I said, I think Stanford wins by 14, and I think Vanderbilt is in the game the majority of it.
All right, Tulane and Ole Miss, 14 point underdogs. Tulane is to Ole Miss. What do you think this one? What do you think about this one?
I'm going to take Ole Miss in this ball game. Uh, I think Tulane's performance against Oklahoma was a little bit of a fluke, and really, I think their performance was enhanced by some inability from Oklahoma. I was impressed by Ole Miss defensively. Wow, night and day between this year and last year. What we saw defensively, and if they can play defense like that with the offense that they have, they're going to win a lot of ball games. And I think they cover in this ball game.
Yeah, I think they cover and then some. Being able to work on tackling drills really seems to help. Not being in the middle of a pandemic and having limited practice time, especially with a new staff, new defensive coordinator, really helps your ball club out. Um, Even though I think DJ Durkin, I still don't really believe in him, but they are playing better defense, and I do like that. I'm here for that. And of course, Matt Corral is a dude. And I think Ole Miss is going to cover this and then some. They're just really an exciting team to watch. Let's be honest about that. So, Oklahoma, the newest member of the SEC, they're not officially a member yet. They can't win the SEC championship just yet, but they can beat the hell out of Nebraska if they want to. They are 22-point favorites there. That's a huge spread. And if it was against any other Power 5 team, I would take the points. But I'm taking Boomer Sooner here.
I'm taking the Sooners too. Have you seen what Illinois has done since their big win over Nebraska?
Jack
Absolutely
Diddley
nothing.
They haven't
absolutely
done
nothing.
diddly poo on off. Jim Moore has something for that. But yeah, it's pitiful.
Yeah, which tells me, you look at that and you say, how bad is Nebraska? And you talk about some off field situation. It's some chatter about their coach, the former Heisman Trophy winner, and some things that he may be in hot water about.
Yeah, I don't think it's a matter of if. I just think it's a matter of when at this point for Scott Frost. So his days are numbered. Texas hosting Rice, 26-point favorites for the Longhorns in Austin. To me, Craig, this is we're pissed off. We're going to show the world that this was just an aberration. That we're still the team that's to be reckoned with. I think they can do it. This is a perfect game to do it. I think they beat up on Rice, and we still don't. And after this game, we're going to think that Texas is back, but we still really don't know much about Texas right now as far as what they bring to the table. But I'm taking the Longhorns here.
I agree. I agree with you 100% on that. I'm going right with you on this one.
So, yeah, there you go. Man of many words. Well, that's going to be our picks. Craig, you finished 5-8 last week. Your overall total is right at 500, 13-13. I finished 7-8 or 7-6 on the week, and 17-9 overall. So I continue to lead. Craig, you kind of fell back to the pack just a little bit, but that's okay. It's a long season. Let's see how we do this week on our picks. But that's going to wrap up our show. Craig, this was a good one. It was a very action-packed show. I hope it's going to continue to be that way as things heat up in the SEC, especially in the SEC East. But if you want to follow us on Twitter, on Instagram, whatever, our information is right here down below. Subscribe, hit the bell notification on YouTube. Positively Ole Miss. Believe in Georgia Dogs is where you can also find this show as well. It is linked there on that channel as well as Positively Ole Miss. So you can find us anywhere you want to. You can also find our audio version on anywhere you find your podcast, Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, those places, with the Believe Podcast Network. So we are the Beast of the East. We are on the Believe Podcast Network. You can see us on Willis Digital Media, home of the Pomcast, not the podcast, but the Pomcast, which is a show is the fastest growing Ole Miss show on the market. And SEC After Dark also, it's the home of SEC After Dark. And of course, check out our guys over at Best of the West. They are our partner show, our counterparts, I guess you should say. Are they our Western rivals? Maybe, I guess. I don't know. Whatever they are, they're doing a great job. Jake Thomas, Kevin Bohannon. They represent Bama and Arkansas, which is unique. So. We are the Beast of the East. We are on the Believe Podcast Network. We are presented by betonline.ag and playactionpools.com. For Craig Ladd, I am Corey Burton. We wish you a very, very happy weekend, a very fun-filled college football weekend. Enjoy the games. Enjoy the action. Go Dogs and go Vols for Craig. Have a great weekend. We'll see you back here next week. So long.